WWF South Africa, based in the Lowveld, the Greater Kruger area. I'm joined by my collaborator. I'm just going to ask her to wave. Christel Antonitas, she's with University of Stellenbosch, the chair for science communication. So please pepper her with the difficult questions. So can someone here in the room tell me what the name Kataza means? Drama, you're getting close? Tiredness? Trouble. Right, so I was told by my colleagues that Kataza means here comes trouble. And I think most of us in this room already knows that when a charismatic animal gets a name, trouble on social media is not very far away. So for our study, which is a work in progress, we looked at about 1,000 social media mentions concerning the Kataza debacle, and I'll explain that to you briefly just now what occurred. But I just want to invite you to read these posts just to get you in the mood for our talk. Okay, so you get a sense for the texture of some of these online conversations. So the story of Kataza and the drama of Kataza occurred against the backdrop of Cape Town's long-standing urban baboon management program, which utilized mostly non-lethal ways to keep baboons out of urban areas. So on the one side, you had scientists, city managers, conservation managers, who felt that the program actually helped to get baboons out of urban areas for most of the time, reducing baboon injuries and deaths, and also mitigating risks for humans, like property damage and so forth. And generally, the program was deemed to be effective. However, as Prof. Ryan indicated now on many occasions, the program lacked sustained stakeholder engagement, and communication began to wane. In 2020, the city decided to relocate a problem baboon to another area. This was Kataza, and that was not an unheard of practice at the time. So then we have another reality, a reality of local residents and people that become baboon activists who saw the program as employing extremely cruel methods. There was a lot of talk about secret killings of baboons under this program, and the demise of the baboon population as a result of the program. So it was deemed by this group as not just ineffective, but also immoral. And the Kataza activists were enraged and outraged about his so-called abduction and forced removal. So you can see the kind of language that's used here. And there was a movement to bring Kataza home. And interesting, this occurred, 2020 in a very particular context that had a big effect on how the drama played out. So this was COVID-19. A lot of us were spending more time online. And globally, there was this growing distrust in government and institutions, and people felt really quite bewildered by what was going on in the world. And many of the fringe conspiracies become mainstream. And this was also the time when this phenomena that the media scholars call a standum started becoming more prominent. So you get the word, standum is a kind of a mixture between the words fandom and stalking. So you have this online extreme standums that form, and it's typically people that mobilize around a particular cause and often also around a celebrity. And some other scholars call this the death of dialogue, because within this group, people get cancelled, doxxed, So that's when your personal information, your information about your kids, where you live, that's placed online. And these groups engage in threats of violence and even death threats to those who do not agree with them. So Kataza had its very own stand-in, and he was painted by this group as a lovable rogue, a daring baboon that was kind of sticking it to the man, a revolutionary, constantly outwitting the city officials. And he was desperately trying to get back home to his friends and family. So you can see how this plays into our COVID anxieties of the time. So we felt isolated, we felt powerless against this kind of faceless government making all these decisions on our behalf. And there was general skepticism about anything any authority said. So rallying behind Kataza gave people an opportunity to have these social connections with each other, a lot of it, of course, online, and reclaim a sense of agency and power and influence and voice, and to feel a sense of being able to resist this kind of faceless forces that's controlling our lives. What is crucial about the online framing of this issue is that it was presented constantly as this either-or dilemma, where, as was said already, you were either like pro-baboon or anti. You were either a hero or a villain. You were either a savior or a killer. And as we often see with conservation issues, a lot of war battle metaphors were used, and we see that a lot, in my world with rhino poaching. And this, of course, brings about very extreme polarized views and an aggressive intolerance for alternative perspectives. So stakeholders actually started living in this kind of landscape of fear where people became afraid to express their views. So in analyzing the data related to Kataza, we're picking up the themes as very much focused around this clash of worldviews and different understandings of the human-nature relationship. So in the data, people express this preference for the notion that animals are individuals and they have individual rights, and they pay much less attention to the welfare of troops and a kind of what we would call a social-ecological system perspective. People feel the baboons are just like us. They really express a lot of enjoyment of looking at the baboons, the aesthetic pleasure, and very importantly, emotions of love and adoration and very strong empathy for the baboons. But there's also a very alarming anti-science and anti-authority layer to the discourse. The program has been called militarized. It's been called overly scientific, where scientists are accused of trying to eradicate and get rid of the baboons, instead of fostering coexistence. And individual scientists are demonized, and science-informed programs are delegitimized, and online misinformation spreads like wildfire. What we're very interested in is how this reinforces class and other racial hierarchies in our society. So in Kataza's case, you had this group, Kataza's Angels, and you often saw kind of white women, females, who were the saviors, and they kind of constructed their story that they were up against incompetent authorities, black, colored, and Afrikaans henchmen who were only out to kill the poor baboons, and the biased scientists who, you guys, who sit in your ivory towers. And this fueled outrage and caused the dominance of these divisive, intolerant views of a privileged white minority in the media. I'm going to ask you later, if you see Christel, let her talk to you a little bit about the platforms. The social media platforms are really designed to foster these kind of polarized debates, but I'm not going to get into that now. So yes, as we know, the outcome is human-human conflict. So authorities were seen as retreating from the debate. There were legal actions. There is currently a legal process going on. Local politicians were threatened and fearful of losing votes, and there was a lot of inertia and a big governance and communication gap. And that led to escalating clashes within communities, decline in baboon welfare, all the things we didn't want to see, especially the reinforcing this idea that conservation is a white issue. So I just want to bring you a little bit back into my world in the Greater Kruger, where we see similar challenges around human and elephant conflict and communicating around elephant management. So, like baboons, elephants are charismatic. They wield a lot of symbolic power, but they're also damage-causing. But unlike the case with the baboons, Kruger's management practices are scrutinized by people very, very far away who live nowhere close to the baboons. And these are also typically privileged people, ex-park employees, very vocal, peppering the park with prior requests, complaining, criticizing on online forums and media, and so forth. Again, we see this either-or framing. It's elephants versus the ecosystem of the park. It's communities versus elephants, and this kind of armchair experts versus the incompetent managers that are not trustworthy. And there's, again, this kind of anti-government, anti-science attitude and a skepticism towards every single thing that the park says. And I think we can learn a lot from our local communities, but their perspectives are generally absent from the media and the media debate. So, for example, local communities, and we also use SenseMaker in our work, they have a much more of a flexible and both understanding of human-nature relations and are more tolerant of other people's views. So I've never heard a community member say that just because they would like to say, for example, consume elephant meat sustainably, that the photographic safari industry must be banned. But I've heard plenty of tourists say that the utilization of elephants are bad and it must be banned. So people, our own local people, have fresh perspectives, and it's wonderful if we can think in an and-both way that elephants can be revered, protected, and utilized. So how do we fail? What do we struggle with as scientists and managers? So most of us in this room acknowledge the impact of social media and media activists on our work on conservation policy. But I have not really seen us yet respond with the correct proportion that's proportionate to the risk that all of this presents. Conservation managers and scientists don't generally prioritize science communication and also are not incentivized to do so. You know, we're incentivized to write papers, not do stakeholder engagement. There's often a lack of interest in training, and we routinely underestimate the time and the skills and the resources needed to do communication properly and strategically. And generally, we also lack online networks and supporters. I won't say standoms, but I think we also need our own fandoms. What are our opportunities? I think we can learn a lot from the framing literature, what we explain, how we explain it, what we emphasize, whose issues we emphasize, and what we leave unsaid. And we also need to learn to explain science better to people out there. So science is trial and error, working with the best available knowledge, no absolute answers, imperfect solutions, trade-offs, because the public has an expectation that we will come with absolute answers and solutions. And I'm yet to see a conservation management plan that has a really robust section in it around communication. So in the Anthropocene, in this context, I think the fascinating challenge that we all now have is how can we use communication to more equitably channel people's energy and empathy to care about the natural world, because that energy and empathy is there. It's just about channeling it. And in my last slide, how can we be more proactive to kind of mitigate this Kataza effect? I think we need to see more collaboration between managers, scientists, social scientists, and communication professionals in analyzing media and also being strategic about using it. And then really a challenge to all of you is, can we treat communication challenges with the same curiosity and rigor and adaptive management mentality that you apply to other phenomena that you work with? So we need to do constant communication with the correct information in an engaging manner. It will build trust over time because the majority of stakeholders are not extremists. We leave you with that if you're interested in exploring this topic more, but I just want to take 30 extra minutes. So last night, no, not 30 seconds, 30 seconds, sorry. 30 seconds. So when see last night the launch of the SES Society, I mean, what a wonderful opportunity and initiative, but the themes. Did anybody see communication as one of the themes? So we have to start putting our money where our mouth is and really take action to address these things. Thank you.